I know you're tired of this pattern. One up and three below. When you're chasing after what matters, your heart knows where to go.
Welcome to the Cosmic Heartline podcast. I am your host, Tora Troop. Cosmic Heartline is home to remembering our relationship with death through compassionate, courageous conversations that remind us of the resilience of our animal spirit. Thank you for joining me today. Today I want to talk about words, the energy and intention and the power of the words that we choose to use, both in our speech and in writing. And I want to do this early on in this podcast journey, both because it is something that I pay very close attention to, and I have been in a process over the past probably 3 years of really being conscious and aware of my word choices, but also because I think you're going to notice as time goes on and as more of these episodes come out, especially in the solo episodes, you're probably going to notice a bit of a slower speech pattern. And I'm going to intentionally leave the large majority of my pauses and those of my guests, if they have them, in the pod for a few reasons. The first being that it's just my natural rhythm of speaking, particularly when I'm being very conscious and very mindful of the words and the language that I'm using. But it's also, I feel, a nice reminder that I'm human. We're all human. And humanity is not perfection. And this podcast and this space does not require perfection either. So, in my first episode, my Remembering Bay episode, Remembering My Why episode, I did edit out a fair amount of my pauses. Primarily because there were a fair amount of them and they were a bit longer, but for that first episode it just seemed to flow better. But moving forward, I don't really intend to. And that is in large part because of what I want to talk about tonight. So, our words, our language, how we communicate, right? We as humans rely on our words a lot. The greater animal kingdom relies on body language. We do too, but we rely on our words a lot. And I think it's easy to forget, or perhaps not even remember, the power and the energy that our words carry. We see a lot of examples of how language impacts each other and the world around us. Perhaps unfortunately, in the world at large, especially today. However, I want to view this through a different lens, through one that's a bit more focused on the good power they can have. Now, like I said, you'll find in my speech pattern, and if you work with me, but even in my posts, I am very, very cognizant and conscientious about the words that I'm using there. Now, of course, I'm human. So I'm not saying this is how I am all the time, but especially in this work, I find it so important to remain centered and aware of the words that I'm using. I want to share a little bit of an example. So, About 2 years ago, maybe not even that long ago, I decided that I was going to reframe how I talked to myself first about the things that I do in my day to day life, my responsibilities, primarily in my language to myself, but then also with others about what I used to call chores. So I have recently three horses at home. I have three dogs at home. I have a cat at home. And the their day-to-day care is my responsibility. I don't have anybody that helps me in their day-to-day care. Um, and I choose it that way. But I notice that when I referred to their care, their morning and evening routines, and the care as chores, it carried a different energy. And I don't know why or when I really clicked into this, but because I used it forever, right? We all use that word. I've got to go do the chores or do these things. And even as kids, we have chores as part of a family unit sometimes, and it never really crossed my mind what how that might color my own internal energy and relationship with the work that I was doing. Now, granted, I love taking care of my animals, but of course, there are days when it feels tedious. There are days when I'm tired. There are days like today when I have a raging headache. There are days when it feels easier and you know, wish that I didn't have to go outside in the rain or in the cold or in the heat and could hunker down and just kind of do my own thing. But of course, I still show up and I do it because I love and I care for my animals. And so I came to this realization that I wanted to change how I phrased what I had to do. So I shifted from saying I need to go out and do the ladies' evening chores, or I'm going to go do the chores with the animals or for the animals. And I changed that to I'm going to go do their morning care. I'm going to go do their evening care. I'm going to go do the care routines. And just that one word, choosing the word, changing the word from chore to care, probably over a few weeks, drastically changed my own internal energetic response to saying or thinking those words. It was a reminder, and it continues to be because every day I do this, whether I'm telling my friends I'm going to go do that, or my business partner I'm going to go do this, or telling myself I need to go do the care. It serves as a reminder every time that what I'm going to do is an act of care, which is an extension of an act of love. And it grounds me in that moment. So that's a quick anecdote, right? And I find in particular in this work, this is really important to be aware of. It's important to be aware of how we speak to ourselves has an impact on our own energy and physical bodies. It's important to be aware of how the words that we use color the world around us and our view of the world. And it's important to be aware of how the words that we will use and that we choose to use, especially in relationship to challenging and emotional circumstances like the death process of one of our beloved animals. It's important to be aware of how our language plays into it all. Another switch that I made is I started using the term my love when speaking to my animals, to the horses, to the dogs, to my cat. Of course, I still have nicknames for them. I use their names. I use other terms, but I decided to also incorporate hello, my love, or hey, loves, or good morning, loves. And that switch too, it's so simple. And to some, I think they might hear it and feel like I'm in too deep with my animals. But also, like, okay, my animals are my family, and I love them deeply. But by using that term with them, for them, towards them, it again, it acts as a simple, gentle, constant reminder that that is who they are, that they are beings that I brought into my life, and I do believe also chose to come into my life, and that they are love, and that I love them. Again, it's a simple reminder, right? And I have actually found as well that it anchors me in this present moment, and it reminds me of the it reminds me of all of our mortality, quite frankly. Because most days, when I am still able to walk up to Sky, my soon to be 21-year-old mare, and say, "Hey, love, how are you?" Or even say, "I love you" to her, at least once a day when I do that, whether it's in the midst of their care routines or during a grooming moment with her, whatever it is, it's an opportunity for me to also be reminded and grateful for for her presence still in front of me in this physical form. It's the same for my older dog Phoenix. She is at least 12 and a half. I've spoken of her in a few other circumstances, and I know that she's in her death window. I don't know when her death will be. I know that she's in that window though. And when I speak of a death window, it could be months, it could be years even, but I know that she's there. And so when I choose to call her my love, or when I choose to say, "Are you okay, lovey?" It's a reminder to me of the importance of being grateful for their physical presence in this life in front of me right now. So I just wanted to bring this up as a opportunity to invite all of you to reflect on the language that you use and how it could be impacting your own internal world and your lens of the world and your energy, your literal physical energy levels as much as your spiritual energy. So I also do want to take an opportunity to talk about some of the terms and language that you will hear more throughout this podcast and my posts and my work, and especially if you choose to work with me, right? So I just use the term death window. That is not unique to me. I learned it in my coursework for a companion animal death doula, but it refers to the term of to the period of time when an animal could in all fairness and reasonably be euthanized for their own comfort. And again, this window could be months, weeks, days, even a year or two. It just depends. It just depends on the circumstances. But that's what that term means. You will hear me use the word sacred. When I say sacred, I mean it. I don't use language like that lightly. Like I'm saying, I am very aware and cognizant of the language I use in general, but especially when it comes to something like the word sacred. I don't use it lightly. But I do use it a lot in reference to this work and in reference to animals and the journey that they take us on during their death transitions, because I firmly believe and have experienced myself that it is a genuinely sacred period and process. It will look different for every single animal, whether you've gone down this road numerous times with animals of your own or whether it's your first time. Each animal is going to bring a different medicine to the table, and there is a sacredness to it. And when I use that word, it is again a reminder, as much to me as to anybody else, that these are special, hard, challenging, poignant, magical times. And that it's okay to feel like something is even more meaningful or something is even more impactful. Always, of course, but especially in these times. And to me, sacred evokes that and reminds me and hopefully others of that. It also, the shamanic work and lens that I have, and the shamanic healing that I myself have been blessed with, for lack of a better word there, no pun intended, um, that is also sacred work. I don't use the shamanic lens lightly. I treat it with reverence and respect, and an understanding and a recognition that there are centuries upon centuries of shamans before me in cultures across the world. I learned in the Celtic tradition, which I have ancestors from that region. So there are ancestral ties there personally, but also just through the ages as humanity, right? This is an age-old medicine, and I am honored and very mindful of maintaining a reverence for that work and that lens and how it plays into all that I do. Another word that you will hear me use a fair amount, and in fact, I have an episode that will be coming out on this topic alone, is ritual. Ritual is an interesting one, but to me, it evokes another reminder of how our actions every day can color our life experience and that of our animals. We'll dive more into this in this upcoming episode, like I said, or in a upcoming episode. But ritual, I think we all have rituals, whether we call them that or not. And ritual is a powerful thing and something that I will and do focus a lot on for people that I work with, because in my experience and understanding, they are very grounding and they provide touch points in a time when touch points might be few and far between, or at least much harder to find and sink into. So I wanted to touch on those. And just as the language that we use absolutely has an impact on our energetic bodies and our worldviews, how we meet the world, I think it's also equally important to be mindful and honest with ourselves about how we are using language or terms of endearment or anything that it is, and if there are underlying deeper attachments to them that might not be as healthy. Healthy might not be the right word. That might not be as balanced, right? By that I mean I greet my animals and refer to my animals, and in talking to them, I'll say, hello, my love, or I love you, or good night, my love, right? And others might hear that and it feels very out of balance. It might feel like, ooh, she's in too deep, right? And she'll be devastated when her animals die, or she's not aware that's not the way to go, right? And I get that. But for me personally, that is not true. For me personally, as I shared, as I said earlier, those words in that term remind me of the finiteness of their physical existence. They serve to remind me of the gratitude and the privilege that it is to have them still with me in their physical bodies right now alongside me. And I am very much aware and think often and recognize often that this will not always be the case. But that's speaking for me. I can't speak for somebody else who might use those similar terms or greet their animals in the same way. And it might be out of a projection. It might be out of a need for something deeper that the animal should not be expected to provide. So I just want to include that caveat as well. It's our words and how we choose to use them can be incredible. They can work alongside us in incredible ways, and they can also be incredible teachers. And they can also really help us get clear on who we are and where we stand with things if we pause and open ourselves up to the medicine of our own language and how we use it and how we interact with it. You'll also notice how I use language in relation to death itself. I am going to say death a lot because that's exactly what it is. We go through death processes throughout our lives. It does not have to be a physical death only. It is so often not a physical death. But even that aside, I think death has been made to feel, death has been made into almost a dirty word in a lot of modern society, I believe. It's this unspeakable, don't invite it in because we just don't want to think about it. And I get that. But another theme that I'll speak a lot of is inviting death to the table and recognizing death as a friend and building a different relationship with death and remembering a different relationship with death. And in so doing, I think it starts a simple place to start is with our own language around it. So I will say death. I used to use the phrase, I lost my dog or I lost Bay. I still kind of do sometimes, but I'm working actually on reframing that one as well. Precisely because I don't believe that we lose them in the death process. I personally have not lost my beloveds in their death process. I have lost their physical form, but not them, not their spirits, and not the love that we shared, and not the lessons and the gifts that they brought to my life and frankly continue to bring to my life. So I'm starting to shift away from saying I lost something or I lost somebody. And I'm instead saying that they are no longer in the physical form. Because that is precisely in my experience and in my view and in my lens, that is precisely what happens, is their physical form goes, but their spirit doesn't have to, right? I will also say euthanized, because again, it's the term for that process. And it's another term that I feel has been made into this dirty word when it's not. It is the, in my opinion, the last greatest act of unconditional love that we can give our animals, if the opportunity and the circumstances are presented to us for that. And I believe in naming it and building comfort with that term as a process and as a means of providing release and the deepest and utmost care to our animal in their greatest time of need. As animal guardians, we know the day will come when we must walk our beloved animal through their death transition, and stewarding them on this journey requires us to put our own hearts aside so we can act with their best interests at the forefront. That doesn't mean you have to navigate these waters alone. As a shamanic animal death doula, I am here to support you and your animal in this transition. Cosmic Heartline offers compassionate conversation, resource investigation, advanced care planning, shamanic ceremony, and grief support, regardless of where you are in the world and where you are on this journey with your animal. For more information and to book services, go to www.cosmicheartline.com and enter promo code POD for $5 off your first session. And now, back to the podcast. So I just want to offer those nuggets of thought tonight. It's something that has been on my mind, and I realized that it felt very important to share and speak of this and bring awareness to this close here to the beginning. This is the third episode now, but close here to the beginning of this podcast and this platform for me, because it is a part of everything that I do in this work. And I believe it is one of the, I won't say simple because it's not always simple, but it is one of the most approachable ways that we can all become more conscious and aware and in tune with our physical, energetic bodies and how we show up in the world. I've focused a lot on the positives of language because that's what I want to choose to focus on. But I am going to say a brief bit on the negatives, right? As soon as actually, I'm not even going to call it negatives, because I don't believe that there's a binary black and white, always positive, always negative label to put to pretty much anything. So let me rephrase that. I want to speak to some of the heavier, the denser words and language that we can use. In becoming more aware and cognizant of my physical energy body and how it responds to different terms and different words, it's immediately apparent to me what words don't jive and don't resonate pretty much at any time. Things like, actually, I'm not even really going to give them here. I'm going to say how we choose to speak to others, to our animals, frames and colors a lot. And I think, especially anybody in the horse world, but anybody, I think, in most of the animal worlds, can think of examples where horses are referred to or animals are referred to as stupid or idiots or troublesome or misbehaving or bad or aggressive, any of these things. And I'm just going to say right now, I flat out don't believe it. I believe that behavior is an extension of their emotional, physical, spiritual needs being met or not. And I do not tolerate those words being used towards my own animals by anybody, even in jest. And I do not respond to having those words used and applied to animals and people, obviously, by others either. I think I firmly believe that this is a bold, perhaps hot take statement, but I'm just going to go there. I firmly believe that we as a collective humanity, could solve the large majority of the world's problems if we spoke more through love and through care and compassion and understanding. And focused less on labeling things or using words that have a dense, heavy, yucky energy to them, and instead focus on neutral or, better yet, positive and loving words. And I don't mean that in a toxic positivity way. I mean it in a genuine acknowledgement of the power that the words that we use and speak and write have on our physical and energetic bodies and that of those around us. So I'll leave that here for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I invite you to think about one word or phrase that you could potentially reframe for yourself to bring in a little more light and a little more gratitude and a little more grounding to your days. It could be something that you say or think in terms of your animals. It could be something that you say or think in terms of the world around you. It could be something that you say or think of yourself. But I invite you to reflect on what is one word or phrase that you can transform and replace with something that gets to the heart of the matter in a bit more gentle way. What's something that can connect you more to your inner self and to your place in this web of interconnection that we all share with each other, with our animals, with the natural world, and with the cosmos? And if you feel so inclined, share it in the comments of this pod. I'd love to hear what you found you wanted to transform. Thanks again for listening. I appreciate you joining me for this mini soapbox / reflection piece. And I look forward to what's to come. There are some incredible collaborative episodes coming up. I can't wait. Some of the people that have immediately jumped in and said, yes, I want to speak with you. I'm grateful. And there's yet another episode that we will have that focuses on that in and of itself, because we don't get anywhere alone, and it's important to acknowledge that and make room for that. And I will be doing that in the future here. But in the meantime, I'm thrilled and really excited to share some amazing conversations with people whom not only bring a very unique and powerful lens to different aspects of this work and this world, but they're also all people that I count amongst my friends and mentors, and I am deeply grateful for that. So stay tuned for that. Next one coming next week. And I hope that you all have some fun with finding that word or phrase that you want to reframe for yourself and remembering your own energetic body in our language and in that process.
I'll put my light in a bottle, something to guide your way.
This has been the Cosmic Heartline Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed what we talked about, if it resonated with you, please don't forget to rate, review, and share with friends. It really does help more people find these conversations, find Cosmic Heartline, and find this work that we're doing. For more information and to connect, go to www.cosmicheartline.com, on Instagram at cosmic_heartline, and Facebook at Cosmic Heartline. The Cosmic Heartline Podcast is a production of Cosmic Heartline LLC, produced by Tora Troop. The music that you hear throughout this episode is More Than One Way to Go Home by Amherst. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.